Welcome to this episode of the Thinking Big podcast. Today, we're going to shred some gnarly wisdom with Carolyn O'Neill about the Stoked Approach coaching methodology that she's created. And as a bonus, you're going to learn some bitchin' new terminology known only to those in the snowboarding, skiing, surfing, and other rad sport communities.
Welcome to the Thinking Big podcast with Sean Osborne, the show helping you think bigger into your life and potential. Sean believes by equipping you with the tools, strategies, and philosophies required to be successful in all aspects of your life, you can achieve anything you believe in. Empowering our own growth makes a deeply positive and lasting impact on our lives, community, and our world. Now, here's Sean.
So, welcome, Caroline, to the podcast, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Sean, for having me. I'm super grateful in this crazy time. This is a great opportunity for us to get to know each other and spread the love in so many different digital ways. Yes. And a podcast is a wonderful way to have that. So thank you. Well, the short, quick, and dirty version is I'm a very avid snowboarder in my 20s. That is my main passion. I was a competitive snowboarder for a while. And
I grew up in Colorado, so I grew up skiing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Then you know what's up.
Oh, yeah. Breckenridge and Vail, Copper Mountain. Oh, yeah.
Well, I grew up, born and raised in Montana. And then actually, after I graduated from high school, I went to Seattle and decided I had two choices. I could either play soccer, like college ball, or do my snowboarding career. And I decided to do my snowboarding career because I wasn't able to do that in Montana. And this is back in the surreal boot wherein we used to video record each other in the backcountry with those big old VHS. I'm totally dating myself. So like backcountry VHS on your shoulder. And it's just been like my biggest passion in life. And so, when you're 19, 20, I don't think, in my experience, you don't have a lot of capacity for noise and society pressures. So that was just what I wanted to do. And I went out and did it. So when I was out in Seattle, I ended up starting a nonprofit and had that for 10 years because a CEO of a large outdoor sports company patted me on the head and told me I was ambitious and cute. And that was my motivation to kind of give the proverbial, I'm going to show you. And I created Mamafest in 2000, and it was a big ski, snowboard, music festival that raised money for breast cancer research in Seattle, Washington. And I mean, we had some pretty amazing bands. We had Macklemore back when he was like 20 in the rain.
What?
Yeah. What? Thrift store shopping and everything. So yeah, early on in my life, I was definitely driven by my passion and my bigger dream, right? And I ended up breaking a lot of bones. And
we've got a lot in common.
Yeah. So I think I broke my back when I was 19 pretty bad. And I was training to, for a competition out there in the Northwest. And I didn't let that kind of get me down. And I took a year off from college. And, I think my mom had told me, maybe I should paint the murals on the side of buildings because maybe college isn't for everyone. And so that was my motivation to finish college. So you can tell on my early journey, when people told me I couldn't do anything, that was my motivation to prove the whole world were wrong, right? Yes. And so yeah, I was out in Seattle for about 10 years, and I worked for my dream company. I worked in the snowboarding industry, and I loved it. And until it kind of changed, the whole industry changed, and I kind of got devastated by the reality of my dream kind of company, my dream life, not matching up to my dream.
Right.
So the reality didn't match. And so I said, all right, I guess I'll go back to Montana and be an adult. And I was about 29. And I ended up getting a real job, and with quotes, air quotes for sure. And I was in advertising marketing for, about 15 years, through my early 20s and into my mid 30s. And I was so unhappy. I was making a ton of money and had all the things, and didn't realize it at the time, but it was one of those external validators. Like all the things on the outside of myself was defining the inside of myself. And my internal self-worth was absolutely equated by what I was driving and who I was dating and where I was living and how much money I was making. And, you know, to be fully transparent, that's kind of what I knew. And I didn't work on a lot of like internal stuff. And so I definitely swayed towards the negative coping mechanisms when I shattered my heel in 2011. And that was pretty devastating. It was actually worse than my back. And I couldn't walk for about 3 or 4 years. And, you know, and I'm an athletic person. So when my external body couldn't do all the things, like then I had to reassess like my self-worth wholly and entirely different matter. And so, you know, I went into a dark place for a few years. And then I finally just kind of got sick of myself and, you know, had a real hard conversation with myself on the floor of my room that I was renting from a friend because I'd lost my house because I couldn't work because of my heel. And I was just like, what am I doing, man? Like, I did all these things, you know, maybe I peaked too early. I don't know, but I just knew this was not the life for me.
Right.
And I straight up just made a decision that day. I decided that I wanted a different life and I committed to that decision. And from there, I didn't really know what it looked like. It was just straight up, I just want something different. And so I moved to California and stopped drinking and I kind of reassessed my life. And, you know, I worked for a startup here for a few years, which was wonderful. I was a VP of their, you know, business development and marketing, and it was a great experience. And they ended up going under. And I was right at that precipice, man, where a lot of people are at right now in this coronavirus precipice.
Yep.
Where like I had a choice, another decision, right? And that was, you know, I could definitely be hired anywhere. It's California. Opportunities are bountiful. Or I can really do what I've always wanted to do, which was start my own company and help other people. Obviously, I have a philanthropic heart in some ways with my nonprofit. And so that's when Dream Bigger Digital was kind of born. And yeah, and so it's been about a year and a half, close to 18 months that I've been doing this. And I can say it's the most glorious thing I've ever done. It's also, I absolutely underestimated the whole entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
You know,
when you look back, it's like, man, had I known back then how much, but again, if you love it, it's not really work, but how much work it really takes. It's a lot of work to be an entrepreneur and a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of stuff you have to give up to do it. But when it's your passion, it's really not that much, not that much work. You're almost driven that you have to do it, not that you want to do it. It's like you have to do this.
Yes, that is so true. And I grew up on a 50% of the time, I grew up on a ranch in Montana. So I know what hard work looks like. I know what it looks like to get up at 5 a.m. and dig ditches and build barbed wire fences in 90-degree heat. Like that's hard work. And I always used to laugh in the corporate world when other people would kind of bitch and moan about working hard. I'm like, this isn't working hard. This is just like showing up. And what I would say is the underestimated part was like the long hours I was fine with. It was me really having this kind of expectation because of my experience. It was me thinking that I knew everything I needed to know because of my experience. But in my experience through the entrepreneurial journey, like the mindset work was extraordinary.
Right.
And I even thought I had all of the tools for that because I've broken my back. I've gotten over it. I still snowboard. I've shattered my heel. I've broken 16 bones, and I have that tenacity, that fortitude. But so I was taking that and also trying to put that in the entrepreneurial like box.
Right.
And it's just different. And so that's why it's so important. Everything shifted when I hired a mentor, when I hired my own coach, because it was like 6 months of me running myself into the wall and me falling and tripping over myself before I was like, I had to humble myself and be like, hey, asking for help is a treasure. It's a good thing.
Yeah, and people don't realize that, people, listeners that are listening, if you don't have a coach to help you see your true self, help bring out, pull out the mirror on you, then you're really missing out. And I'm dating myself, but back when, 25 years ago, coaches were, they were looked down upon. You got to coach because something was wrong. You got to coach, unless you're in sports, that's a different thing. Sports coaches are different, but you were looked at as that was a bad thing. And now, luckily we're getting kind of out of that, and it's looked at, more less woo woo type stuff, and less, look down that you have a problem. But yeah, coaching is absolutely essential in developing your own personal, growth, and developing to your potential. I mean, that's so. What type of coach did you get?
Well, let's see. I did a couple programs at first, but mostly business coaching, because
Okay. Yeah.
for me, I knew I had. Here's the thing: like, you can get a business coach, and then you'll work on mindset. You'll get a mindset coach, and sometimes you'll work on business.
Yep.
I have digital marketing experience. I've been in the digital marketing field a little differently for more like corporate structures, right? So I would sell a lot of the packages, and then would go in the back end and magic would happen. So I knew how it worked, but I needed somebody to kind of like help me take my zone of genius and develop it and recognize what that was. Then I can excel at that, because I'm a huge fan of recognizing your assets and kind of letting go of your deficits.
Right. Right.
For example, like, I am not the best speller in the world. It's not my high priority. Grammar is not my forte.
That's
And
what spell checker's for.
right. And, but it is a necessity. I can't be entirely lazy because people won't take me seriously. And, there's other people that's a big deal. So, however, it's something that I can outsource. I can
Right.
hire somebody to do.
Right.
And even recognizing that was helpful for me when my coach had addressed that, because then I can spend a lot of my energy where I am very successful, which is creating and
Right.
developing and pulling other zones of genius out of my clients, and
Right.
developing their story.
Yeah, and
So
that's actually one of the things that I learned from one of my coaches years ago. And he brought up a thing. It's you have to ask yourself who, not how. And that was probably one of the things that turned. I've always been of the mindset that if I'm capable of doing something, I'm going to do it myself. I'm not going to pay someone else to go do graphics, or I'm not going to pay someone else to go do this or do that. If I'm capable of doing it, I'm going to do it myself. And that was one of the big things for me with my coaches, when he said, you have to ask yourself who, not how. Who can you get to do this? Who can you outsource this thing to, and now obviously if I just go and sit my butt on the couch, then it's not money well spent. But if I'm using, my gifts and using that time, but yeah, that was a big thing for me too, is finding out who and how I can offset
yeah.
things.
So I love that so much, because it resonates with me, because I used to tote around this badge of honor of like doing everything by myself, or
Yep.
on my own. I should
Yep.
say by myself. I think it's on my own is different than by myself.
Yeah.
And so, starting a nonprofit that was super popular and did really well, and my athleticism and all of these things that are like 20 years ago, right? I'm like pulling from a bag I need to dust off, which is another good point, because the courage and worthiness that took me to start a business, to become a snowboarder, to get over my broken bones, it's going to take a different kind of worthiness and confidence as I grow. And
Right.
that's also something that I was, that I underestimated. And so there's new levels and new devils as you grow.
Right.
And that's why I love mindset so much, because it's like worthiness and mindset is a business strategy that
Yeah.
I think is underestimated. And if we don't invest in ourselves to develop that, and I'm definitely, I felt not victim. I succumbed to that mentality, because I was running into myself so hard because
Right.
I thought I had to do everything on my own,
Right.
where you hire a mentor, you ask for some help, and like the road is paved for you a little bit easier, and all you need is like a guide to like direct you, instead of you like squirreling out in the forest for
Right.
days or weeks or months.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I'm telling you, it is life changing when you go out and you start getting with mentors, to kind of help you along the way. You get with coaches to help, kind of see who you are and what your potential is. And then things like masterminds where, you get groups of people, like-minded people together, and the ideas you come up with are, no single person's going to be able to come up with that idea by themselves. But when you get the group of people together, that creates, as they said in Think and Grow Rich, that creates a, more powerful mind that the group has. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you brought up Think and Grow Rich, because it was one of the things when I made the decision. I had like a few weeks before I went to London, and so it just was like 2 weeks of just emerging, and like I was absorbing all of these podcasts and books. And my dad had given me that book probably like 12 years ago, and he's got an MBA from Darden. He's now a cattle rancher. So, but yeah, I dusted off that book because I saw it online and I was gonna buy it, and I ended up seeing it in my shelf. One of those shelves that you don't look at for years.
That's called shelf help.
Yes, shelf help. And I love that it was written so long ago. What was it, 39?
Yeah,
1939?
in the 30s, yeah.
Yeah, and like all of the methodologies and kind of the mindset and the structures are so, like, they're so relevant now. I mean, fast forward to the new industrial revolution of technology, but it's the same structures are just like in sales, like Jeffrey Gitmore and a lot of these published I don't know, gurus, for lack of a better word.
Right.
The methodologies are the same, but however, you can read a book, you can listen to all the podcasts and watch all the videos and take all the courses, but nothing is going to change without action and application and implementation.
Yep. You can know all you want about snowboarding, read all the latest, technology on boards and how to do it, but until you get your ass on the slope, you're not going to get very good.
Oh, for sure. It's like when
happen.
I live in California now, I literally can see the ocean right now. And it was one of those expectations, those preloaded expectations, which is really just going to be a resentment and hiding. And I was like, I've been snowboarding. I used to be, competitive. I got this. And I went surfing, and it's a completely different, like, mind, body, cognition experience. It's so different from snowboarding, other than you're sliding sideways on snow or a wave. That's about the only similarity I found.
There's no sharks on the slope.
Yes, I hear that.
So when you're in Seattle, did you ever go windsurfing in the Gorge?
Oh my God, the Gorge, George?
Yeah.
Yes. So we called it the Gorge at George because then they had the Gorge Amphitheater, and then we would actually go to a show. I think there was like Sasquatch Festival was happening there. This is before all the festivals were festivals as they are now. But yeah, I never went windsurfing, but I did kiteboarding. So kiteboarding kind of popped up in the early 2000s.
Yeah, that wasn't popular yet when I was.
Yeah. Yes, but windsurfing is cool. It's hard. I grew up on a lake in Montana, and I thought it was easy, and it's not. It's challenging.
So you did it on a lake in Montana, Flathead Lake?
Close. Okay. Just like one lake north, so Whitefish. So I was born and raised in Whitefish.
Okay, I had family that was in Polson.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That whole valley that whole valley, which maybe has, I don't even know, maybe 50,000 people now.
Yeah.
Maybe. And when I grew up, Whitefish in that area had maybe 10.
All I remember from that is we would go out there and we would get on their boathouse, and I was so mesmerized because you could see 30, 40 feet deep in the water. That's the first time I'd ever seen clear water. I'm like, you could see the fish. I mean, I was mesmerized.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
But there's not much wind. Well, there's snowboarding. I mean, you're pretty close to the Canadian Rockies, weren't you?
Yeah, I have some clients that are Canadian. I keep telling them I'm almost Canadian because we're about like an hour, 40 minutes from the border.
Yeah, you're pretty close.
Alberta, Calgary folks would come down, and then every winter, every summer. So you get an influx, like our population would double pretty much from the Canadians.
Yeah. So tell me about your the stuff that you're doing, the Stoked Approach stuff. How'd you come up with that name? What is that? That's
So, yeah, it was one of those. So Stoked Approach. So Stoked, Stoked, has been in my vernacular for obvious reasons for a really long time,
oh yeah,
close to 20 years. And when I was with a coaching program, they're helping us develop our packages and what we're going to offer. And, of course, we had to name it, and as you should. And, uh, you know, I was trying to figure out like something that would be good hook, et cetera, et cetera. So I came up with like the Stoked Approach because, well, for one, it's kind of a methodology for life, and it inspired by snowboarding events. So when I was competing, and when I would sit at a tabletop, or anytime that I'd go over like uh, I used to be in slope style, so it was like rails and jumps and big jumps with like a 40-foot gap tabletop or 20 feet. And
right,
at the top of the jump, you'd have to like visualize, like close your eyes and really understand like how much speed you're going to get, when you're going to tuck your shoulder, when you're going to pop off the lift. And so you'd visualize it quite a lot, and you'd see other people go off and when they lifted and popped and whatever. So it was all about visualization. And with that, knowing where you're going to go and how you're going to get there. And then once you like pointed down, you had to commit, because if you hesitated even the slightest bit when you are like going down full board, you do mess up, you hesitate, and you kind of get effed up, which I did, hence breaking my back. Um, and so I thought that was a really great analogy for committing to yourselves
right,
in business and entrepreneurship. So wanting to start a business and not knowing why or how, or like what's your bigger vision for it, it's going to be really frustrating, because you're not going to get to where you're going if you don't know where you're going.
right,
So
right,
the Stoked Approach was kind of inspired through that whole process of me when I was snowboarding, is that like every time I had to do something super scary, I always had to visualize it, and
yeah,
then I had to commit to it. And then once I committed to it, it's messy, massive action. So I didn't start off of a 60-foot tabletop,
right,
gap. I would fall, and falling isn't failing. Falling is learning. It's feedback. It's
yeah,
feedback for what to do and what not to do. And
exactly. And
it's
that's
just
in
like
all aspects of life. That's not sports. That is
totally.
absolutely everything we do. It's all fail forward. It's the only way to do
Yes.
it. You have to. And
Yes.
that's one thing, you talked about visualizing, and that's actually one of the things I use in some of my workshops. One, because I was a skier, but I think people always see it. You have to visualize and pre-do what you do before you do it. You have
Hmm.
to win in your mind before you can win in what you're doing. And people actually see this when people watch the Olympics, and they watch, for instance, snowboarders, or they watch skiers before their run. You can actually see them. They'll film them up top getting ready, and you can see them with their eyes closed, and they're going through every corner. They're going through every move. They're visually, and you can see them actually visualizing their run before they even begin. And that is and you see it more than anything in skiing. I don't know why, but at least I do. You see them at the top, literally visualizing the entire course of what they're going to do.
Yeah, and I don't know if you ever done any backcountry, and backcountry is super fun, but it's also super dangerous.
Yeah.
And when you're, taking 3, 4 hours or 5 hours a hike, and you're looking down at like every line, you're looking at the pitch, you're looking at the fall line, and when you get to the top, I mean, you already have an idea of where you're going. You don't just stand at the top and say go. There's a whole methodology of like the lines you're going to carry because of avalanches and
Right.
boulders and rocks and other obstacles. So I really like the Stoked Approach because I can pull from that methodology. And and I think it's really important for new entrepreneurs to really create that vision, and it will change, absolutely. Like,
Right.
but here's the thing: you got to starting. You got to start somewhere. And for me, snowboarding is one of those my absolute happy places.
Yeah.
If anybody listens to Abraham Hicks or Joe Dispenza, and you got to recalculate and recalibrate your mind to that happy place where your physiological body responds
Right.
and that positive vibration, like that's my go-to. So, and hence the Stoked approach, because I can pull from it. I can nerd out on it and talk about snowboarding and the approach and why it's so relative and
Right.
for days and days.
Oh, yeah.
However, I will say that in the beginning, when you're kind of questioning your confidence, you're questioning if you're doing things right or how you're going to be seen. And I remember being very insecure about the name, because like, are people going to take me seriously? Is it too juvenile? Is it, 1,000 stories I writ in my head.
Right.
And so I went online, and this is where kind of Abraham Hicks, the energy universe, whatever
Right.
your jam is. And I looked up the word stoked, and I wanted to see the definition. And, the definition was amazing and applied. But then like one Google result after that was Stanford University has a freshman course called The Psychology of Stoked. And I was reading the description. So first I was like, oh, Stanford's got a course, then I'm good. Stanford's got a course, I'm good. But it was all about like being happy and being in a state of elevation where you are really attracting a different mindset and a different way of being, because you're so resolved in what you're doing. And it's really like you don't listen to the noise on the outside. So after that, I was like, done.
Yep.
Plant my flag.
Yeah. And you talked about the mindset, and I think mindset is so important. How we see ourselves, who we are is who we attract. So if our mindset is poor, we're going to attract, crap in, crap out. I mean, it's the same thing, So I think the mindset is absolutely the most important thing we have. I mean, it's, people don't realize that the way we think dictates how we feel, which dictates what we do, which dictates what we get. And it all starts with the, it all starts with the mindset and the thoughts. It really does. I mean, there's no way around that.
And it's, I read a lot of Joe Dispenza and Abraham Hicks and like a bunch of other people that are just anybody. If you're in coaching or business or not, like you should listen to it, because managing our mind is the most important thing that we can do. And in this climate right now, I've had a lot of calls this last week, and everybody's like, "How are you doing? How's it going?" I'm like, "I'm doing amazingly," because my time, outside of my time, which is my most valuable asset that I have to offer people, is what I'm being influenced by. And so when it comes to the news, it's more of like a scholastic exercise. So I check in, I see what's up, and then I check out, because it's one of those rabbit holes that can stuck you in and like suck the life out of you. And I think in Think and Grow Rich and a lot of other people, you are the average of the 6 people you hang out with.
Really are, yeah.
And back to the deciding, committing, and messy, massive action, I get to make those decisions too of how my time is going to be spent with whom kind of fills my cup of joy versus depletes my energy.
Right.
And, I don't think a lot of folks, at least I didn't in the beginning, understand that is also a mindset. It's a habit. It's these things that we get to create in our own lives.
Right.
That gets to be a choice, especially as an entrepreneur. Like, we get to drive this bus wherever the hell we want to take it.
Even off a cliff.
Even off a cliff. Absolutely.
And some of
but
us
then you got to own that shit if you do,
right?
You
do. Yeah, if you're going down.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do you think, with all the stuff that's going on, how do you think technology is going to play a part in the stuff that you do?
Oh, well, I'm going to get super nerdy on you, Sean.
Hey.
And thanks for asking that question. I think that this time in humanity is just like an entire shift in recalibration for our our worthiness, our value, how we talk to one another, what our communication styles are. And, for me, this last 3 weeks has been business as usual. If not, I've been way more busy because of it.
Right.
But, but for these people that don't know what Zoom is, and they're just getting introduced to Zoom, and now they can have this extra tool in their tool belt, where texting used to be is the norm. It's like, now we have this opportunity technology is going to be the springboard of like a revolution of change, in
Yeah.
my opinion. And
It
there's going to
it's
be
gonna be it's gonna be a complete change in what we do and how we do it.
yeah,
Not only are individuals, but companies are gonna be forced to start using, being creative on how we can work. And I especially the longer this goes on, the more impact it's gonna have on how we operate moving forward. Absolutely.
yes. And I this is the coolest part from my perspective, is that we all, as human beings, being human, bouncing around on this planet, running into each other, just trying to live our lives, um, we all have the opportunity to make a change. And so the whole globe, like, think about this, the whole globe has had to shift how
Yeah.
they're functioning.
Yeah.
And like, oh, we can't do this because of global warming, and we can't do this because of like jobs, and we can't do like all of these we can'ts. They're all happening right now, and the whole world has shifted the way that we are perceiving how we are doing things. So why wouldn't an individual think, not only in this climate, like if you got laid off or if you lost a job, um, like, why wouldn't this be an opportunity? Like, I think the
Yeah.
universe, or whatever you believe in that's outside of yourself, this is really like an opportunity. It's such a gorgeous opportunity to
It
like
is. Yeah.
take advantage of
Yeah.
what's out there.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, now is the time to sit back. I don't want to sound, but now's the time to sit back, meditate, and really find what your passion is and how can you where's the creativity in you that can come out of this better? What things can you do, coming out of this? Again, our to me, our whole world, has the possibility of changing. And it's like, so I live in Houston. And as an example, I think 2 or 3 years ago, we had Hurricane Harvey, which came in
Mm.
and devastated Houston. I mean, the whole, we're the fourth largest city in the country, and it completely devastated us. People had to get creative on what to do. Jobs were lost. Things changed. I have friends that were executive chefs that are now they do home remodeling. They got creative and stepped outside of what they were, accustomed to do, and learned new skills, got creative, learned how to do things differently, learned what their passions were. So I think, yeah, it's going to change some things.
Well, yeah, it's it's gently forcing the conversation into what our worth is into the world, because a lot of us, myself included, in the past, identify our worthiness of what we do.
Right.
So when we lose our jobs, or we don't have the opportunity to be in the same capacity at work, and it time will only give you an opportunity to reflect. And because this is a pandemic, it's a little gnarly, right? And I think, like, I love going out in my front of my house, and I see kids on the street. And I'm
Yeah.
in California. Like, I grew up like that.
Yeah.
And this is the first time I've seen it down here in California in like 3 years. We're
Yeah.
like neighborhood kids from like two houses down. They're all playing like cornhole and street hockey. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is amazing. Look at this amount
Yeah.
of community and connection, right?
Yeah.
And connection really is currency. And I think that is going to be one of the biggest shifts,
Yeah.
on the other
Absolutely.
side of this.
And I think it's going to change everything. I don't know. Are you into like cycling or anything outside of doing the snowboard stuff? But like I use
Yes.
things like Zwift and various technologies that connect. I did a ride yesterday with a guy from. One of the guys was from Italy. One of them was from Spain, and we're all chatting online, riding. And I think technology is going to really change the way we do things, and we're right on that verge. I'm telling you, it's gonna be altered. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I think old structures and paradigms will be questioned,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of, like, it's easier for a society to tell us that we can't do things, right?
Right.
It's a lot harder to have your community, or um, even your own mindset, know that you can rise up and dream bigger and actually do the damn deal. You don't
Right.
have to sit in fear, because look at the globe. That's a great piece of evidence. Every community across the entire planet has had to shift, and look, like, the air is cleaner, the water is cleaner. We're
Yeah.
Like it's kind of mind blowing. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited for the other side of this.
Yeah. I think we will come out again. Shit's happening, but I think we will come out as a society. We'll come out stronger. We'll come out better than when we went in. It's just a reset of values. I mean, it's gonna change that stuff. So how do people find you? How do they get in touch with you and find out what you're doing?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Sean. You can reach me, of course, at dreambiggerdigital.com. And you can also look me under the hashtag or handle Stoked Coach. That's STOKED COACH. I spelled that right. Yes. Stoked Coach on Instagram and also on Facebook.
You did say spelling wasn't your best thing.
It's not. Like all the creative people throughout history, I've read all the books. They say that they can't spell either, so I'm going to go with that.
And in addition to that, I'll have all of this stuff in the show notes for everyone. So if you're listening to this right now, the show notes will have all the links to Carolyn's stuff. So you don't have to worry about writing it down if you don't want to. Just go to the show notes and we'll link up to all that.
I'm not sure when this is going to go live or not, but coming up, I'm doing group coaching for emerging female entrepreneurs. Anybody who's been kind of running into themselves or feel stuck or wanting to work on their niche. The Stoked Approach is doing open enrollment the middle of April 2020, and will continue to do so. And so I welcome anybody if they want to get kind of a business clarification call, like 30 minutes. I'm always happy to hop on the phone. I'm even, asking for people to contact me if they just need like a little mini mindset shift strategy call too.
Right. Especially in a time like now. I never thought I was a connector. I never thought that I was but I'm telling you, once it gets taken away, it's like I'm trying to find all these ways to try to connect to people. I was always the one that I always thought I was such an introvert until something like this happens, and I was like, shit. How do I connect?
That. Well, I see. It's funny because it's one of those things where we think we know, but then opportunities will arise, and if we're awake and have the awareness, which you do, right, you lean into that kind of new way, and then sometimes we surprise the shit out of ourselves, and we're like,
yes,
oh my God, this is amazing. And I would have never thought of that if I wasn't open to that experience. I want to thank you for your time and the opportunity to connect with you more and your audience as well. And of course, I like your podcast name, Thinking Big.
That's right.
Dream bigger, thinking big. Like I get it.
Oh yeah. Yep. Think big. You got to think big to be big. It's you are what you think. So
yes.
You might as well think big. I mean,
yes.
If there's even a 5% chance that that's true, why not think big?
Dude, you have to, because here's my this is what I tell a lot of my clients, and myself included. If you're not thinking big, if you're not dreaming big, you're going to be satisfied with what you see. Yep. And as human beings, being human, we are going to be just kind of in this comfy zone. So, yep, I always tell my clients too, scare the shit out of yourself. If you're uncomfortable and scared, you're doing something right.
Yep.
You're growing. Yep. And you're learning.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to, I try to get uncomfortable at least once a day. Something to get uncomfortable. It's like I actually hate that comfort feeling now. Before I loved being in the comfort zone. It was nice and comfy and warm and safe, and now I absolutely hate it. It's like, I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there.
I know you hit a certain point, man. It's like you can't go back. It's I think the last statistic that I heard about coaching, because coaching industry is kind of the Wild West, right?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody can be it. And
anybody and everybody's a coach. Yeah.
Yeah. And at the same time, it's kind of I think the attrition rate is extraordinary. To almost 80% of the coaches who try out their first year don't succeed.
Right.
And I'm sure that there's stats of why, but it really, just like businesses, anybody who's trying to start a business, the attrition rate is going to be high in the first 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
However, if you invest in yourself, give yourself a little bit of willingness, open-mindedness, there's a lot of opportunity. And once you find your stride, you have, Sean, and like I have, and most of the successful people out there, they're doing it because there's a bigger vision.
Right.
And it's not about the fame and the glory. It's really about being of service. And so this is a funny story. Because I'm in strategy and I've been in business long enough to like know how to reverse engineer a plan and et cetera. So my office looked like those giant Post-it notes, like threw up. So I had this huge wall. It was probably like 12 feet long. And I had these Post-it notes, and I had strategized my 5-year, 3-year, 1 year to each quarter plan, like what I was going to make, what I had to do. I mean, it was super anal retentive and down to like almost the penny. And I was right after I read Think and Grow Rich, and so I was like, I'm putting this all out in the universe, and anyway. So I had this thing, and I was looking at it for like a month, and I'm super stoked, and I know what I was going to make. And then 6 months went by, and then I wasn't even close to like hitting a target. And then like 8 months went by, and I wasn't even close to hitting a target. I'm second guessing every ounce of my being, and like thinking I had, way over my head on this. And what I realized is that the intention of me starting my business is not the same of why I've sustained business now.
Right.
So I was all head and no heart. Like it was all about making money. It was all about kind of being seen, all the things that I was used to doing in the past. And, and I had to come to Jesus moment, so to speak, with myself. And it was like another turning point. And I'm so glad it happened, but I had to kind of go through all this like self-inflicted pain to realize that like there was no heart in what I was doing. Like, of course I could help clients, and I was helping clients, but there wasn't like that bigger vision gap was severed. And that's why when I worked with that was a huge turning point. Like after that happened and everything shifted, and I was like, I don't care how much money I make. I just want to help people. Back when I was a 19-year-old idiot doing this, it was successful. And I was just out there helping people and wanted to create a community. And it's crazy because like once your intentions are pure and you really know what you want and why.
Right. And that's and that's one of the things that I learned as well is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yes,
and it's
I love that. Yeah,
you could know everything, but people really don't care until they know that you actually care about their problem, care about them, care about what they're going through. That to me, that's one of the critical things, especially for small businesses. This isn't for Apple and all these huge companies, but if you're a small business, people are only going to go to you because they know that you care about them and care about their, their problems and care, and can offer a solution for that. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how, when you broke your back or your ankle, how did that affect you mentally? I know I broke, I want to say maybe 10, 15 years ago, I broke my femur in half in a cycling accident. And I know some people would say, how could you ever get back on a bike? How could you ever do this again? How could you, get back on and do these things? And to me, it was like, if you don't, you can either accept things and say, okay, embrace it and say, this is where I'm at. This is what's happening. Now let's get shit done and go move forward. I mean, it's a mental thing when setbacks like that happen. And it's, you can either take them as a springboard, or you can either lay back and give up. It's
certainly I think it's so when it's shifted my kind of methodology or my mindset. Back then it just wasn't an option not to snowboard. So after that happened, I was bedridden for about 2 to 3 months with a back brace and had to help like shower and go to the bathroom. And I knew if I didn't get on the snow and take one run before the end of the season, because that happened in October, or no, it happened in December. So I had like the very tail end, I think the end of March for the hill close. I knew that if I didn't get kind of back on the horse, so to speak, that was going to be a fear that would carry through the next season, and I would be in fear. And so I've always, I've always been the person that kind of burns the boats and goes all in. And my mama always used to say I pushed the envelope. So at, when I was 19 through 25, because I broke bones consecutively every year until I was about 25, it just wasn't an option. Like I didn't, there was no other option. So that was the only thing that was in my mind.
Right.
And it was different when I shattered my heel because I was a little older. I had the society things like, a mortgage, and I needed to. But here's the thing, like my mindset, I didn't know what I wanted to do because I was so unhappy in my job and my life.
Right.
I used the shattering of the heel and not being able to walk kind of as an excuse to check out. And that's exactly what I did. And so because I was in a lot of pain, I definitely overdrank. And, I don't know why, because through all the years and all the pain pills, that was not my jam. I just like drinking. It was my favorite thing to do. And so I used that to kind of buffer my emotions, my pain. And, it worked for a while until it didn't. And, my best thinking got me to where I was, and I was a victim of my own reality. And the biggest shift was when you start taking responsibility for the life that you're leading and the life that you want. That's when you're able to make a change. And there's a lot of victims out there, but like I do not want life to happen to me. I want life to happen with me and intentionally and on purpose.
Yeah. You have to live intentionally, or else it's just gonna happen to you. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. And I mean, full transparency too. It offered me an opportunity to think outside of myself, because when you've done a lot of things early on in your life, like I did, I take responsibility for everything. So all of the good, right? All of the good, it was my doing. All of the bad, it was my doing. So taking that kind of responsibility, it was also kind of a double-edged sword, because I did not have any sort of connection to anything spiritually outside of myself. I was the master of the universe, and that is a lot of responsibility, right? And a lot of disappointments, because if I think I'm the master of the universe, my entire world is so tiny, right? It's so incredibly small.
Yeah.
And until I was kind of introduced in a new way of thinking and but I got in touch with the spiritual advisor that kind of opened my eyes up. And I was raised Irish Catholic, but that didn't resonate with me, probably due to my sexuality. And so that was something that really kind of saved my life and gave me such a huge perspective, like as the universe, because there's so many times where I should have died, like in the backcountry, or just doing stupid shit that I was doing. And
I always do stupid shit.
Yeah, like my car didn't get pulled, and there's like some crazy serendipitous things that have happened. Of course, I have to recognize that there's something greater than myself.
Yeah.
And I really think that the trifecta of mind, body, spirit is important, because they're like, if I don't work out or keep my body in shape or eat healthy, like it affects my mind.
Yeah.
And it'll affect my thinking, because then I'm more consumed on how I look and how I feel versus what I'm doing. And, that's why it's
people are they're very short-sighted if we think that not being well balanced, and if I'm not as healthy as I can be or should be, if I don't think that affects my my relationships, or it affects my my careers, that's very short-sighted. They all you have to have a good balance, because they do affect each other, without a doubt.
Oh my gosh, yeah, for sure. And I think when I was younger, it was just all about like, I've achieved everything I've ever wanted, so to speak. But then like in my 30s, when I was making decent money and bought my first house at 29, and I was living the society kind of conducive life that, I fell, I guess I should say, I succumbed to what my parents wanted me to do and what society wanted me to do. And that was never really in my personality to begin with. So it was going against my own grain, and it showed up in a lot of different ways, like the negativity of it. And, so I'm super grateful and blessed, because I feel like I've come full circle. Like in my life. And I just turned 40 this year. And, 20 years ago, I started a nonprofit because I was passionate and I was snowboarding. Like somewhere in the middle, I decided to, succumb to what society wanted me to be. And that didn't work out so well. So then I went back to like dreaming big and doing what I want. And so I think I know that with that perspective, there's a lot of value that I can bring to the clients that I do have conversations with. And it's really great that I had to go through all the struggles that I did in the first like probably 8-9 months of my business. So then when people hire me, I can negate those paths of frustration. Yeah. And I think for the longest time, I thought I was the smartest person in the room and the fanciest. And that's why the universe is so glorious, because it will scoop you full of humble pie when you're when you need it. And
that it will.
Yeah. And so I'm grateful for it, because I didn't like the person I was becoming, and I needed to make a change. And sometimes the universe does for us what we cannot do for ourselves. And I've taken it with a whole heart, and it just made me a better coach, a better person.
Yeah, sometimes it takes the universe to use a 2x4 on me, but it gets my attention.
Yeah, for sure.
As I say, sometimes it's a feather, sometimes it's a 2x4. Normally for me, it's 2x4.
Yes.
But yeah, it's, so you helping other entrepreneurs, especially those first, as you said, those first 9 months, the first 12 months, why not go to someone that's done it, learn from them? I'm of the mindset now that if I can learn from someone else's mistakes, that's so much easier than learning from my own. So people that are starting their own, and that's going to be big. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to be starting their own companies now, starting their own thing. You really need to get with people like you to help navigate, especially the first 12 months at a minimum of opening a company, and don't do the same mistakes you did. I mean, it took you years probably to learn some of these mistakes. Get with you and learn these up front, and learn from your mistakes rather than from their own. Yeah, I think, and that's to me, that's with anything in life. It's we have so many resources available to us now with technology.
Yeah, it's just like what Tony Robbins says, taking his experience takes decades into days, right?
Yeah.
And with the Stoked Approach, it's like I give a ridiculous amount of value. It goes from, it's basically activate mindset and accelerate growth. And in the 6 months with me, it goes from, mindset work to really calibrate habits, figure out where you're at, like clear old inventory of ways of thinking, at least recognizing them. And then it goes into creating a brand and how to use and implement the tools that are available for free when you're just starting out. Because here's the thing that I know for sure: the first year, everything's going to evolve after application. So you don't want to like spend a ton of money on a website when you don't know your niche, you don't know your messaging. So it's the arc that we go through in the 6 months. And then by the end of the 6 months, we set them up with a WordPress website hosted by my company. I have a partner that used to be the IT director for the Associated Press. So he's like the guru. That's his zone of genius. And, but it's about developing the message, and you get there quicker by implementing. And I'm a big fan of doing. So it's in a group of other women that are in the same mastermind, developing and lifting one another up and being empowered by doing. But we're giving you a path instead of being like whack-a-mole with courses and strategies and this and that. Because the one thing that we don't have that we can never get back is time. So you can spend the 2 weeks on a course that you can actually do in like a session or two with like critical, real conversations, and like weed out a lot of that shit that we hold on to, so then we can like propel on the other side.
Yeah, because if we want to go fast, we have to get with people like you that have been through it. So and I think you can actually do this at any level. It doesn't, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that you have customers that aren't just starting out. I mean, you need these types of resources really no matter what level you are in your company. I mean, it's not just for brand new entrepreneurs, I would think.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I have 3 clients in particular that have had their businesses for about 3 years, but
Yeah.
they've stagnated. They've
Right.
kind of hit like this lull where they've been getting the same results, which has not been satisfactory in their view. So in order to get to that next level, you really got to clear out a lot of the inventory in our mind and the way of doing things. And then usually when we stagnate too, excuse me, we don't have an idea of where we want to go. So
Right.
we're staying the same.
Right.
And with the coaching programs, it's all about like a collective vision of where you want to go. And of course it's going to change, but when we stagnate, it's because we are either settled into what's comfortable or we're not going anywhere because we don't know where we're going. We
Right.
haven't even established that. So
What is one thing that our listeners can do today? What's one thing that they can do that will help them grow? What's one idea? What's that to me? If someone can get one idea from a from a podcast, that's a win.
So I'm a huge fan of what I call subtle wins. And what a subtle win is making these decisions, right, that we have in our lives every day, committing to those decisions and honoring our own commitments to ourselves first,
Right.
and then taking massive, messy action. And I'll give you an example. If you've been wanting to get up at 7 o'clock so you can make your tea earlier, so then you can walk your dog or take care of your kids, and you haven't been able to, but you make a decision that you're going to do this just for the next 3 days, and you do that for 3 days in a row, that's a win. That's a subtle win that you're honoring a commitment to yourself.
Right.
And then taking massive, messy action. You might
I
hit
like
snooze
that.
a couple times.
I
Yeah,
like that.
right?
Massive, messy action.
Yeah.
It's going to be messy.
Yes, I call it MMA, massive, messy action, because we are only going to grow, learn, and expand when we know how we learn, grow, and expand. And the only way to
Right.
do that is through action.
Yep. Just
So
to do it. Yep. Again, it's so grateful that you're on the podcast today. I know people are going to get so much value from the stuff that you have and from this and from going to your site. So again, thank you very much for taking the time. It's been amazing.
Yes, I would love that so much. And thank you, Sean, for everything that you do and reaching out to me. And I want your listeners to know that this has been a gorgeous experience. And I'm looking forward to seeing where we're going to be in the next 6 months.
I get so much out of doing this, and one of the greatest things I get from doing a podcast is literally being able to reach out and talk and get to know and connect with people, amazing people from around the globe. It's absolutely amazing. It's so fulfilling for me to be able to connect with people. So